My father passed when I was 2 years old, and all my ancestors distinguished themselves in glorious battle, but many of them died doing so. My father died during the 7 Years' War against the English. Now, I was a country boy. I was raised in my castle, Chavagnac, in Auvergne. I was actually a poor aristocrat. And when I say poor, it's that some aristocrats have a very large fortune. My castle wasn't producing a lot of, from the agriculture, wasn't producing a lot because there were no men to really handle that part of the job. So until 10 years old, I stayed in Auvergne. And then my mother, who was in Paris at that whole time, brought me to Paris to do my formal education at the French court. And I never really enjoyed it. I never really enjoyed the French court. I find the court very frivolous and of no interest for me. But I always had an interest in military. And so at an early age, I was enrolled in a military academy at Versailles. And my whole focus as a young man is I wanted to distinguish myself the same way my ancestors did in the battlefield. At 12 years old, my mother and my grandfather passed away. Now that things changed. My grandfather was extremely rich. And I became one of the wealthiest young men in the French royalty. And I went to Metz, which is the northeast of France. And that is where, for the first time, I heard about the insurgent in America. That's how we called them at the time, the insurgent, because they were insurging against King George. And when I heard that, something struck me. Those people were fighting for liberty and not for land. And that's a new thought that we had in France. We always fought for land and power, but the Americans were fighting for their liberty against the British. And in the same time, I got introduced to the Freemasonry, les francs-maçons. And in that, at that time, the subject was civil rights. We were talking about how to have more civil rights and more balance in the government. And so as soon as I heard about the fight of the insurgency, I decided to enlist my heart. And what I mean by that is as soon as I came back to Paris, I went and contacted a gentleman called Silas Dean. And he was a Connecticut lawyer who was sent by the Congress of America to recruit troops. And I signed a military deal with him, and I became a major general at 19 years old. So what I did is I bought my own ship. I bought my own ship, I had a lot of money. I bought my own ship, and I actually bring some other Frenchmen with us. Now, a lot of misconception is I actually a Frenchman, and I came as a Frenchman, but I'm an American soldier. I signed an American soldier, so I never fought on the American soil as a French soldier. I was an American soldier. So when I arrived in Philadelphia, they told us they didn't need us anymore. They told us we should go home now. We don't need officers. We needed them a year ago, but now we're fine. So of course I didn't let that happen. And what I did is I told them I would serve at my own expense and as a volunteer. And you're from New England, a lot of people are from New England. New England heard that very well. Volunteer, no expense. It was done. And on top of that, I had no command. So I was a major general in the Continental Army with no command. I was just a numerous, a number in the Continental Army. And I had to prove myself to General Washington. And the first thing I told him when we met together is we reviewed the troops a couple of days later. And he turned to me and apologized for how the American troops looks like. And the American troops were nothing else than peasants, and normal people would just, well, let's talk less. But with a big heart. And he apologized for that because we're coming from a professional army with people who are paid and very well dressed, and they didn't all have guns. So, and I turned to him and I answered, Mon Général, I am not here to teach, I am here to learn. And that was the first tracking ground of a relationship that would last until his death. He was much older than me. I was a young man. He was in his 40s. He never had a son or a daughter. He had siblings from his wife. And I was an orphan. and we became a relationship of a father and son. I respected General Washington a lot, and he knew he could count on me. And Amiral de Grasse is I become really the liaison, a little like you've been the liaison here. I become the liaison between the American troops and the French troops. And because I knew that, as you know, relationships are not easy, especially between French and American. French soldiers, and especially the admirals have a lot of power. They basically don't have to answer to anyone. And they did. When de Grasse said, I don't want to stay, he doesn't have to stay. And somebody has to tell him, please, and do transition. And my relationship in Yorktown with Amiral de Grasse has not always been easy. As you know, he didn't want to stay there. He wanted to go he was actually requested in October 15 to be in the French Indies. And he really took a lot of discussion for him to agree on staying there, but he was fighting the time. And we went on his boat to discuss that. I'm jumping to Yorktown. We went to his boat with General Washington to talk about that. And Amiral de Grasse had this French humor that an American soldier don't always understand. Amiral de Grasse was a tall man too. General Washington was very tall. Amiral de Grasse kept calling General Washington mon petit général. And apparently General Washington wasn't very pleased with it, but he had a very English sense of humor, and Admiral, I don't think meant to be mean, but he didn't take it very well. That's why the second time I was requested to go on the Admiral de Grasse boat, I came on my own. So I was very successful here, not as successful in France.
General, did you ever visit Marblehead?
Marblehead, yes. Well, I came back in 1824.
And you had 2 visits?
I had 2 visits. The first one in 1824. Well, actually, no, it's my third today. The 1824, I was able to reconnect with the Glover Regiment, which we fought it together during the Battle of Rhode Island. The Glover Regiment was the 14th Regiment, and then became the 21st Regiment. So it was the 21st during the Rhode Island battle. And so I had a chance to connect to the Marblehead Regiment at that time. And then I would come back as an older man in 1824, but I would not stay long because, and I think Mr. Hoffman can talk about what's going to happen to me on that day, since he researched it so much.
Did you give a speech in 1784?
Oh yes, I did a speech. Matter of fact, now that we're talking about it, I made a copy somewhere of that speech. So that speech that I gave in November 2nd, 1784. While I have the satisfaction once more to enter a town we so lately fought and so truly bled, in the great contest admiration mingles with the tender concern of a sympathizing heart, but amidst our regrets of brave men who had the honor to fall in their country's course, I rejoice in the virtuous spirit and animated industry remarkable in the remaining sons of Marblehead. May your losses be 100-fold repaired by all the blessing of peace and plenty, and may your numerous posterity and the preservation of that liberty so gloriously purchased ever venerate the memory of their ancestors. Equally proud of your esteem and happy in your friendship, gentlemen, I heartily thank you for all your kind wishes, and so honorable welcome, and will most pleasantly anticipate every opportunity to present you with the most affectionate tribute of my respect and gratitude.